everyone, today I have the incredible John Cousins with me. John, please could you introduce yourself and share how you were drawn to Avalon?
Well, hello, thank you for having me. So my name is John Cousins and I have the huge honour and privilege of being the Mayor of Glastonbury, which is not something I ever wanted to do, but here I am. And that means I'm also a town councillor. But that isn't really what drew me to Glastonbury, and I guess like many folk, I had a calling, and I think that I'm sure that many of the people who are listening to this may resonate with that. So I was working in the North Cotswolds, a place called Morton-in-Marsh, which apparently is a terrible place for cricket. As they say out there, they say, they've only got one pair of pads and both of them are right. So any cricketers out there might understand what that means. I don't. Anyway, so I'm working in Morton-in-Marsh, and I've been, for one happy accident into another, I've been working with alternative currencies. So part of what I had been working with is called local exchange trading systems or schemes. They abbreviate that to LETS. And another area that I've got involved in was community time banking, which is using time as a currency, because we've all got time. And these are kind of alternatives to money, although LETS is a little bit like money. Time banking, on the other hand, isn't. And so there was a LETS scheme in Glastonbury, and they wanted to turn into a time bank. And they went to a lady called Mary Fee, who was the head person of a thing called Let's Link UK. And they said, let's time bank, let's. And she said, there's only one person in the country who does let's time bank, let's. And he's in the North Cotswolds in Morton-in-Marsh. Now, unbeknown to me, this is going on. And for maybe about 3 or 4 months, I just had the tour in my mind and Glastonbury in my mind. It was just before solstice in 2003, or was it 2002? I'm not too sure. And I got a phone call, and on the end was, hello, my name's Mike and I'm with Avalon Let's, the Gibo, and we're looking to do a time bank. We know you know about Let's and time banks. Would you like to come and help us out? And because I'd had Glastonbury in my mind, Glastonbury calling. It's a little bit like that film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where he builds this big mountain out of his food and then he builds it out of his garden in his living room. And this mountain is the thing that appears on the TV, and he realizes that this place exists. And there's other people who've been having this calling to this place. And so Glastonbury was calling me in that way. I wasn't making mini tours, but I had this thing. So when he rang up, and I was like, oh, okay. And it's not that I'm reckless. I'm a very risk averse person, but I'm just very happy to go with the universe on whatever it's doing. And this felt so natural. And I was working on a project that was fully funded by some grant from Europe or something like that. And so I had a project where I was a project manager. It's a big time bank, had loads of people involved in it, hundreds and hundreds of people involved in it. And I had a secure job for maybe 2 years, somewhere to live. And I got this call and I said, yeah, I'd love to help you. Have you got any money? Which might sound a bit odd when I'm dealing with alternative currencies, but someone's somehow you got to, until you can get the baked beans for time, you got to be able to put the baked beans on the table. And he said, yeah, we've got £2,000. And I said, I'll be there. On the strength of £2,000, I'll do it. So I came down, it was just after solstice, and started working with them. And it became Avalon Fair Shares, because the body that was running time banking in this country is called Fair Shares. So Avalon Fair Shares. And I thought, I'll be there for 6 months, help them set this up, and I'll go and do something else. And that was in 2003, and I'm still here. Because, you know, Glastonbury, if Glastonbury wants you, there is nothing you can do about it. You'll turn up, somewhere to stay will materialize, something to do will materialize, it will happen. Because really, you don't have any choice. When Glastonbury it calls you, it wants you, you're willing to come, and you're willing to have your Glastonbury experience. And I think the opposite is also true, is if Glastonbury doesn't want you, there's no way you're staying. Even if you really, really want to stay, it's harsh, isn't it? It's harsh, because not everybody who's here, who stays here, wants to stay here. But they can't do anything about it. And not everybody who can't stay here, they want to be here, but they can't do anything about it. So, and that's the part of the something of this place, isn't it? That I can talk about Glastonbury like it's a person. Glastonbury called me, and I came. And together with that calling are the serendipities and synchronicities that happen here, like nowhere else. So, like, you know, I remember one day I was here. I used to know a guy called Jerome Flynn, who's an actor, and I'd done some work with him on a different project, and we have mutual friends. And I remember one morning I woke up and I thought, I really need to speak to Jerome Flynn. Haven't seen him for maybe 2 years. Don't even know his number. I'm not a big fan of the phone. Don't even know his number. That was in the morning. I go to Earth Fair, and who's in front of me in the queue? Jerome Flynn. And that's how Glastonbury works, if you get out of your own way. So, you know, stuff like that does not happen anywhere else. That's here. And I think that's connected to what Glastonbury is. And that's a big question. What is Glastonbury is a big question. My favourite question and things like this. What is it? What is it that calls us? What is it that can decide you're staying? It's not human agency. What is it that amazingly sets up this synchronicity, serendipity framework or network of... I was talking to somebody earlier about it, you know, like mycorrhiza underneath the fungal network underneath the trees, right, in a proper wood. Like, it's like that. There's a network here that you're tapped into. And I think to me the key around that is service. That doesn't sound too pompous, but service to Glastonbury. That means two things, two very distinct things. One is the community of Glastonbury, which I think is about 50% people who've been called here, and 50% people whose parents were called here or grandparents were called here in 1870 to work at Morland's factory. And there's a very distinct difference between those two sets of people. One lot are economic immigrants who came here when Glastonbury was still suffering from the echo or the ripples of the destruction of the Abbey. And it was an economic intention. Clarkson's in Moreland, they brought them here. Nothing to do with cultural and spiritual centre of worldwide importance and significance. Everything to do with, I'm going to make some money to put the beans on the table. Someone's got to do it. So, and the other side of it, the other side of that service is this place. What is this? Glastonbury. This thing that I hope coming across fairly rationally, ladies and gentlemen, I can talk about a place as if it's a conscious entity. So that's how I came to Glastonbury.
How do you experience and express your spiritual path in Avalon day to day?
The first thing I would say is that I'm not religious. I don't follow any faith at all. I don't profess anything. Apart from, is veganism a faith? I don't know. I mean, I'm very strict vegan. I wrote a little pamphlet called Remember Richard Whiting, which is another story. And in there I misquote Groucho Marx, which said, "If I never join a religion, they would have me as a member." And why I'm like that is because I think that spirituality is something that is personal. It's about our, as human beings, our personal relationship with the something else, with the au-delà, or with the creator spirit. I don't know what you would call it. Because as soon as you start trying to name these things, somehow, this is like a line, but like we limit it by our own. And like, I'm pretty limited in my understanding of stuff. So you're limiting it. So whatever it is, our relationship with that great something else, that other thing, that is part and parcel of all that is and all that was and all that will be, that is a personal relationship. And if I followed the Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita or the Mahabharata, and I've read all of these books, if I followed the religious direction, then that would change the relationship that I might have with that great thing, whatever it is. As I said, I've read the Quran 3 times. I've read the Bible twice. I've read the New Testament one more time than the Old Testament. And I've read the Bhagavad Gita lots of times. That kind of resonates with me as a vegan, I think. Arjuna says, "What's human food?" And Krishna goes, "Leaf, flower, fruit and water." Doesn't mention the milk. Anyway, it's good. So I'm curious about those things. So that personal relationship, in a funny sort of way, as I've been in Glastonbury for 20 years now, more or less, the thing that I think I have a relationship on that level with is Glastonbury. Does that make sense? Whatever that thing is that called me here, whatever that thing is that enables the serendipities and synchronicities, whatever that thing is that has attracted, at last count, 81 different paths, faiths, creeds, religions, to this place. And they're all here because of Glastonbury. When I think about that great something else, that au-delà, it's Glastonbury. And how does that manifest in the day-to-day thing is, I have made a conscious, it might sound really contrived or pompous, I do apologize, but I made a conscious decision to serve Glastonbury. So in my everyday, it's my everyday spiritual life and the things that I do in relation to Glastonbury, rather than things that I do in relation to work. because I'm in service. So like all the stuff I do for Glastonbury is not paid. Like you don't get paid for being mayor, you don't get paid for being on the council, you don't get paid for being involved with things like the Information Centre or Avalon Community Energy. Just don't get paid. So I have to work elsewhere to earn some money. And so all of that is service to place. And that is what I decided to do. So my everyday spiritual journey is what do the Hindus call it? Do they call it bhakti? That's how it manifests in my life, if that doesn't sound too pompous. I mean, I haven't really talked about this publicly very much, about how I connect with place. But it is important, now more than any time, possibly in our history, especially in the Western world. It's really vital now that we as human beings connect to the land, connect to the place. We need to connect with all that is, all that was, all that will be, in a way that we are feeling, emotionally feeling the world we live in. And it's really important now, because our disconnect, which we've honed, and I'm going to use the correct word, to a science. You know, well done scientists. We've honed this. We've professed, well done professors, we've professed this disconnect to the point that we're destroying existence of life on the planet. We're so disconnected. So it's vital now, isn't it? So I was reflecting on this earlier. You know, there are people on their journey here in Avalon or Glastonbury. We're going through a troubled experience. It's not always comfortable. It's not like, hey everybody, we're going down to Woodstock. This is like, so Glastonbury's called you. Now your work begins. You thought life was hard before you got here. Here's your Glastonbury experience. Good luck. And it is harsh for people, because all our stuff, if you're called, I don't know, I think this happens to a lot of people. I've heard people say this, so I'm going to repeat this. You're called, certainly I've witnessed and experienced this, you're called here and all your stuff goes kaboom. And you got to deal with your stuff. You're going to say, I'm not doing this. You might be spat out, or you might find that Glastonbury is not giving you the luxury of being spat out, and you're going to have kaboom for the rest of the time you're here. And it's hard, because growing, especially when we've been disconnected, is hard, and feeling, emotionally connecting to stuff is hard. We're all the walking wounded. We've all, suffered trauma in this life. 1 in 5 people have been sexually assaulted. We are in a bad state as a species. Western civilized people. And we're the ones who've got to get our act together. So this is something Glastonbury provides you an opportunity to do, is to connect. Hard work. And I have had incredible experience with connecting with stuff here that is not human agency. I don't talk about that a lot, because it's my journey, but I think it is time to talk about it a bit more, because if we don't do that, it's already too late. But it's how we're going to deal with too late. It's how we're going to build our resilience as a species to the terrible stuff that's going to happen due to our actions. Apologies to everyone else on the planet. So I have heard, yes, I've had, what would you call it, clairaudience? So I've heard stuff. I remember Bill Knight former Mayor Bill Knight, on hearing that I'd had clairaudience, he invited me round for a cup of tea, and he said, John, I hear you've been hearing voices. Is that true? And I said, well, Bill, don't we all? So I didn't. So yeah, Bill, it was true. And when stuff like that happens, I mean, I've done enough training I work in communities to know about delusion and mental ill health and hearing voices. But this wasn't like that. This was like stuff that made immense sense. In fact, if you want to know what I was told by these disembodied voices that are related to Avalon, Glastonbury, read the 3 pamphlets, because it's all in those 3 pamphlets. Remember Richard Whiting, What is Glastonbury, Temple of Reconciliation. So that is received. People say, and I don't talk about that a lot, but you have to place your trust in something greater or something mysterious than just the kind of rational, scientific, it's a right word, reductionist sort of thinking, to the thinking that inspires and creates and connects. And that is a state of being more open to stuff. And that's hard. I think that's really hard, because we close ourselves down at every opportunity. Miraculous things happen in this world daily. We can see something miraculous and carry on as if nothing happened, because it doesn't compute with our everyday world. And we might say, that was lucky, or that was a near miss, or if I'd been there a second earlier, I wouldn't be here now. All these kind of things, these things that happen that mean you didn't crash the car and you didn't die and all this sort of stuff. We kind of gloss over those sorts of things in our life as if they weren't remarkable, but there's a lot of remarkable stuff actually happening. And that's just the mundane. There's other stuff that happens to people which is extremely extraordinary. You see something in the sky, you don't know what it is. You say, oh, that's an aeroplane, or that's a satellite. But we try to rationalize all of these things that we do. So that I think is a mistake. I think actually we need to be more open to those things. And in Glastonbury, the beautiful flag for us is the serendipities and synchronicities. And that's why I don't have a phone, because everyone I need to see, I bump into. Everyone who needs to see me, I bump into. And if you don't bump into me, it's because I don't need to see you. But my connection, like that clairaudience that I had, wasn't with the land itself, but with an agency serving the land. I'm not the only person to be connected to those agencies. That's great. I mean, they're not human beings. It's not that they're... Anyway, so that they are part and parcel of the process here, but that isn't it. That isn't Glastonbury itself. So in doing my work, I took a vow. I was asked to make a vow to only work in the mundane, which I agreed to, if that doesn't sound too bizarre. And all the work that I do is in relation to the very clunky, everyday material world, which takes time. And the only thing that I do that gets close to intentional work or craft or whatever you want to call it is prayer. And so I do pray, and when I pray to Jesu Maria, which I see as those two words which are carved on the south side of the Mary Chapel. Those two words are, as a Reverend Lewis, not Smithwick Lewis, but the other one in Jerusalem, Glastonbury, England's Jerusalem, or the English Jerusalem, he says, two words, but they contain all. And I think that's really important, because I would translate those two words as the divine masculine and the divine feminine in perfect harmony and union. And that's everything in a nutshell. Two words, but they contain all. And that in a place like Glastonbury, which my understanding and my witness and my experience tells me is a place of the heart, and the heart in yoga is a place of balance, and if it is the heart chakra of the planet, then it's a balanced place. The chakra symbol of those two triangles that form the balanced six-pointed star, that is a symbol of that divine union. And that Sanskrit letter word that looks like a U within it, that means, that's one you can Google. It's good. So the balance, that balance is reflected in those words, Jesu Maria. So when I pray now, I am praying to Jesus Maria. And I'm not a Christian, and I don't follow a religion, but I do find that is my way of understanding this place in the balance of it. I find that rather than hearing the land, that those prayers are answered through things that happen, if that makes sense. Things that happen. So I've been in an unusual position where my actual connection, which is kind of like a conversational connection with Au-delà, which is remarkable. If you told me in 2002 that would be happening, I think you were crazy. And if I heard myself talking about it, I think I'm crazy. But there we go. But that clairaudience and conversation that I'm having is with agency Au-delà, but it's not with whatever Glastonbury is. Does that make sense? And so the response that I get, this is like talking to a human being. It really is like talking to a human being. And that other stuff is a process of prayer, meditation, and unfolding. Does that make sense?
When we say goddess or divine feminine, what does that mean for you?
I don't generally think of herself without him. I refer to the goddess as herself with a capital H, only because I don't know her name. I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's herself. I think of the goddess in a human form. So I'm my thought when you say goddess, I see this woman. And then there are two goddesses that I find resonate with me, and I don't see her as either of them, but one is Mary as the Queen of Heaven in chapter 12 of the book of Revelation. The woman clothed with the sun, standing on the moon with the stars, 12 stars as a crown. Wow, that's a biggie for me, That is, that is such an important chapter of the Bible. When the abbot wore the cope in the abbey, chapter 12 of the book of Revelation is embroidered on the cope. The monks of Glastonbury, the Benedictines, saw that as the most important piece of scripture. It's the bit where Mary, as the Queen of Heaven, flees from the destructive forces of the devil to her sanctuary on earth, prepared by God. Where could that be? I love that. When William of Malmesbury wrote about the Wattle and Daub Church, AD 37 and all that, he used that same phrase in Latin as in the Latin version of the Bible, prepared by God. The Wattle and Daub Church, prepared by God. So, very interesting to me. So one thing I see, like, I have this kind of Mary, and my vision of her in my mind is completely and 100% Our Lady of Glastonbury, that statue that's in the St. Mary's Catholic Church, of Mary, Our Lady of Glastonbury, holding the Christ child in one hand and the rose miraculous in the other. People say it's Holy Thorn. It's the rose miraculous, the Glaston rose in the other hand. And that's how I see her. So that's powerful stuff, That's how one, and the other one is Radharani. Just like in Golopa, is that how you say it? With Krishna's playing his flute, and the gopis are all around, and Radharani is dancing to the music of the flute. And there's many images of this, and one thing that the Hindu sort of tradition is really good at, especially in the modern world, is making these amazing images of their deities, and Radha Krishna more perhaps than any others, and so this beautiful blue Krishna playing his flute and this amazingly beautiful woman dancing, and I really resonate with her as a goddess. And that there's a bit in one of the purports that I read in one of the many translations of Bhagavad Gita that I've read, they say there's a piece in the purport. It's not Srila Prabhupada, I don't know who it is, I can't remember. They say there's a moment in the music and the dance where Krishna and Radharani do not know where one ends and the other begins. Just remarkable. So those two images are big with me, but when I think of herself, it's like I'm overlaying them on her. Mm-hmm. And if I'm really just thinking about her as the goddess, I don't know what she looks like, apart from the fact that she's a feminine being, and in a human way. So that really is it. And so, I said earlier that I would, if I pray, I'm praying to Isu Maria, even though I'm not a Christian. I'm not an anything. I'm a vegan, if that means anything. So there's something in that, isn't there? I guess, and that might be the Glastonbury thing, because that vision of her, with the child and the holding this amazing plant in her hands, this flowering bush, white roses, which some people say is the holy thorn. I'm not convinced about that. Anyway, Rose Miraculous, I think that Glaston rose is the true emblem of paradise to the north, the earth. This image that they have in the Catholic Church, this statue, is taken from the seal of the Abbey, and the seal in the 14th century, so 13 whatever. And that's taken from the image of the statue that was there when the Wattle and Daub Church was there. And that Wattle and Daub Church was there in AD 37. So Joseph of Arimathea, with his 12 companions, he climbs up Wiriel, he puts his staff in the ground, and it springs to life as the holy thorn. Gabriel appears above him, and there's two versions in William of Malmesbury's history. Version 1, go down into the valley where you will find a church prepared by God. Same line as Mary's sanctuary on earth in chapter 12, book of Revelations. Only chapter 12 of Revelations is written in AD 95. We're talking about AD 37.
Wow.
So this is like 60 years or so before John of Patmos is writing about Mary's sanctuary on earth. Who came with Joseph? I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day in the morning. And who was in those ships, all 3? That's a great little number. It does tell you who was in the ships. So, if Joseph turns up comes from the Holy Land to the south of France, to Mary, the Mary de la Mer, the Marys of the Sea, the 3 Marys, Mary, the Mother of God, Mary and Martha, and Mary Magdalene, Mary Martha. That's who's with him. Like, those 3 Marys are with him. When he arrives in France, they still celebrate that day every year. They have a big festival for the 3 Marys of the Sea on their journey to Glastonbury, right? They cross the Pyrenees, take their boats, sail to Marazion. Now, what could that mean? Marazion. And then they go round up the estuary, land, come across. So if there's a statue of Mary in the Wattle and Daub Church from an early date, could it have been carved by people who knew herself? That's a pretty amazing provenance for a statue. The original one was burnt down. I won't mention any names. Peter de Marcy in 1184 on the 25th of May. But yeah, that statue really is quite remarkable. Anyway, so that's the goddess for me. I've gone on a long time about herself.
This year, the Goddess Conference theme is the Sovereign Lady of Avalon. What does sovereignty mean to you? And how does living in Avalon, Glastonbury, empower you in your sovereignty?
Well, sovereignty is a kind of mixture of 2 things, isn't it? One is almost like a divine right to be in control of what? Sovereign self would mean in control of yourself. Sovereignty could mean about making your own decisions. But sovereign isn't just that, is it? Because the sovereignty reflected in the monarch, which is a very interesting word, that sovereignty is also about service, which is a bit people forget, I think, sometimes. It's not just about being in control, It's being in control with some sense of responsibility and purpose. And so, there's been a lot of talk about sovereignty in this town. A lot of anarchistic style talk really about sovereignty, I could say. I've heard a lot of that. I'm a free person of the land, and it's kind of like, it almost feels like some people think of that as like carte blanche to do whatever they want to do, and two fingers to everyone else because I'm sovereign. Whereas that's just too easy. That's too easy, and good luck. I've had this conversation with a few folk, like, really, that kind of sovereignty is about how you govern yourself, holding responsibility and holding a space that is as if it was divinely given. It's a divine right. A divine right has responsibilities. So sovereignty in relation to Glastonbury is really interesting. When we lit the beacon for Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee, remarkable things happened. First of all, Glastonbury was chosen to be the first beacon to be lit in the country, in the Commonwealth, in the world. And secondly, we decided to light it with a combined flame. Did I talk about that already? So at 12 o'clock on that Thursday, we bought the Hiroshima Peace Flame, which has been burning since the dreadful nuclear weapon, from the flames of Hiroshima, that sacred flame. We bought the Bridget Flame. Talk about herself, bride. Wow, that's big in Glastonbury, And then we bought the Unity candle. And I'm into that unity thing. Not unity as in homogeneous, but that kind of phrase, unity through diversity. Now that is a big ask. But all of those different paths, creeds, faiths, religions that are here all have one really big thing in common: Glastonbury. So we brought those flames together, and the Theban flame that had gone to Kiev from St. Michael's Tower in Glastonbury to the Cathedral of St. Michael in Kiev, and it had just come back. This is like gone to the center of war, a peace flame from Glastonbury. As mayor, I wrote a letter. This person is our envoy from Glastonbury. This is great stuff. We also sent a peace envoy to Patmos, where Book of Revelation is written. Travel across Europe from the vigil that we did for Ukraine, with the message in both of them: may peace prevail on earth. So those flames came together, and we formed. I'm in the mundane, I was witnessing this. The sovereign flame of Avalon. And we carried that up to the Tor to light the first beacon, the sovereign flame of Avalon.
Wow.
And the beacon was lit by the wonderful vicar, David McGeoch, and Drew Bennett, the Archdruid. They lit that together with the Auroric peace banners behind them.
Wow.
may peace prevail. Pax Cultura, Pax Mundi. This is a message we are sending out because we know that as soon as we finished at Buckingham Palace, the whole world's television is coming to Glastonbury to see the lighting of this flame, the sovereign flame of Avalon. And that light is then lit across the entire world. Now, Glastonbury has a very special significance with sovereignty, because when Joseph of Arimathea arrives in AD 37, climbs Wiriel Hill, have we got enough time? Plants the thorn, however, Gabriel, down and back, not prepared by God, da-da-da-da-da-da. King Avaragus, the king, he's mentioned in King Lear, he is the chief of the tribe around here. He says, Joseph, I gift you the 12 hides of Glastonbury, and they are independent of our sovereign reign. So Glastonbury is an independent state within Avaragus's state. That gift is repeated by successive monarchs to the point where you get a monarch of a united England, like Inge, the Saxon king, who reaffirms Glastonbury's status independent of state and monarchy. And that's reaffirmed and reaffirmed and reaffirmed throughout history. It remains that way, the Free State of Avalon, with the abbot effectively being the monarch within this little island state, until 1539, when Henry VIII has a different idea. So we're sovereign as the Isle of Avalon, the sovereign flame of Avalon. But not only that, we have a unique connection to the monarchy through our position, because as the foremost spiritual center and founding church of Christianity in this country, some say in the world, AD 37 is pretty early, right? I'm sure Rufus Pudens would agree with me. So what you've got is an abbot in Dunstan, a saint. He is abbot of Glastonbury, he's bishop of Winchester, and he's the Archbishop of Canterbury. Most powerful person from the First Estate in a sovereign estate of itself, but in the First Estate of the realm.
Wow.
And he crowns 3 kings: Edmund the Peaceful, Edgar, and Edmund Ironside. All 3 of them are buried in the abbey. And that coronation, he first performs it in Bath for Edmund the Peaceful. That coronation ceremony that St Dunstan creates is still the coronation ceremony today. And so the Queen, our Queen, who's been on the throne for these 70 years, the service, the coronation service, is St Dunstan's service.
Wow.
So Glastonbury isn't only independent of state and monarchy, it crowns the monarchy in St Dunstan's ceremony. When William and Kate were married, and Rowan Williamson, a tremendous Archbishop of Canterbury, that marriage ceremony that they had is St Dunstan's royal marriage ceremony. So this is Glastonbury. You know, this is what this year has done for me, is just like really framed our position in the matter of Britain, the matter of Glaston in the matter of Britain. We're fundamental to this whole thing going on. And there's sovereignty all through this and around it. Sovereignty of the monarch, sovereignty of this grace of a service. You know, it was all there. If you watch that coronation service, you know, some say that St Dunstan was a druid. I've received a lot of criticism for making that statement, but if you want to see why I said that, take a look at that. It's a great film called The Queen is Crowned. Laurence Olivier is narrating it. Queen herself is already been made a bard at this time through Eisteddfod, you know. And so the symbolism of this whole service, they even call in the quarters, you know, it's just like, it's amazing.
Wow.
It really is. So sovereignty is, to me, is brought on a whole meaning in this Platinum Jubilee year around our relationship as a place with the monarchy of the land and the sovereignty. And the final bit that I thought was tremendous was it's the 100th anniversary of Alice Buckton's pageant this year as well. Tied them in together. And we've been doing this thing all year long. So the palace said in around about September, October last year, the palace said, Buckingham Palace said, they wanted to have a year-long celebration. And so I sat down with a number of people and planned a year-long celebration, which is doing two things. One is reflecting Glastonbury's unique relationship with sovereignty and monarchy in the matter of Britain. And the second is celebrating the story of that matter, the matter of Glaston, through celebrating the 100th anniversary of Alice Buckton's pageant and film, Glastonbury Past and Present. And they've tied in beautifully over the year. And in doing so, that's the amazing things we've done. And there have been some really tremendous things happened in the year. That flagged us up to the Queen's representatives, which is why we were asked to be the first beacon. You know, it's been quite tremendous. What made me smile was that there was a lot of criticism from certain parts of our community that we hadn't done the Jubilee very well because there weren't enough Union flags in the High Street. So it just goes to show that you can do your best with something like this, and you won't please everyone, will you?
Well, you never can, you know, but...
So I thought being on after the Queen was pretty neat myself. That was one up for Glastonbury, but
incredible.
It's been remarkable, and so for me, I was just delighted to be able to help that happen in the role I play as mayor. You know, it ties into a lot of stuff. I mean, I know that you've interviewed Drew, and he's talked about stuff that we've been working on over 10 years or more around Glastonbury itself, and in a way answering that insignificant question, what is it? What is Glastonbury? Industrial market town, or spiritual and cultural centre of worldwide importance and significance? Discuss.
John, thank you so much. Thank you for your words, your time, your wisdom. Thank you for sharing with us. On behalf of everyone that watches this interview, thank you. It's been wonderful. Hopefully we see you at the conference, and if not, we'll see you around town during that time.
Well, it's an honour, a huge honour to have been asked, and may Glastonbury flourish, as they say.
Aho, may Glastonbury flourish.